Veenu and Chuck Hogan. We want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and her network on 𝐤𝐭 TV channels 250 and 251. 𝐤𝐭 TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. 𝐤𝐭 TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 and forward. Live Now is a show all about finding the synergy and body-minded spirit. Please join us as we tackle intense topics of conversation that will spur your mind, steer your soul, and give you some direction. With that said, we are excited to dive into tonight's topic with you.
Hey everyone, it's great to see you. Veenu, so wonderful to see you, my friend. It sounds like you've been having an amazing time. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know, it's like road warriors. What are we gonna do? You're always in a different place. I'm always in a different place. And, you know, yet I always know the person I'm gonna be speaking to. Why is that? Well, tonight we're talking about authenticity. And I gotta tell y'all, it is so important in today's day and age to surround yourself with real, authentic people. And we're gonna get into this very deep, but I want to thank you, Veenu, for always being real, always being authentic, and just calling it like it is. You know, there's something that's so powerful and empowering in a friendship when you know that the other person's looking out for you, irrespective if it's going to be good news or challenging news, but they're going to give it to you straight and with love and appreciation and respect. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
You know, Chuck, I think that for some people, even myself, I don't know if it's always been like that. I mean, I've always been that friend that I tell my friends, if you want me to tell you that dress looks good on you, just tell me what you want me to say. But if you want me to be truthful, I'm going to be truthful. Like I've always been that friend. But what I've also found out is that people think they want to hear the truth and they don't. And so we start to be that chameleon when we want to belong and we want to fit in. And then we get caught up in the masks that we wear that we don't even know what authenticity is anymore. And so I think that that's important, you know, for our listeners. How many of you out there think about that? Like, am I my authentic self? Am I being authentic in this moment? And, you know, some things that have been told to me specifically with my show, Redefine Parenting, and with my coaching is how vulnerable I am, even with my own situations, like with my kids, when I'm going through a hard time. And somebody told me, they're like, that is what makes us drawn to you, is that you get us, that you are not this doctor that's gone to school and it's above us and it's just going to teach us. Like, you communicate with us, you communicate to us, you help us understand that what we're going through, it's part of life and we're all in this together. And that is, you know, a few years ago when I really started to say, what is authenticity? It's being me, regardless of what situation I'm in, and not trying to impress other people for them to like me. Because you and I both have been a part of different communities where at times, I think you can agree that we had to put on some airs or a mask or try to mind read what other people wanted to see in us. And it took us out of our game. But when we are our authentic self, there's nothing to rehearse. There's nothing to think about in saying or doing or being. We just are.
Agree. You know, and part of it is that living in an inauthentic state can be something as simple as suppressing your actual emotions and feelings. Like, if you don't feel that something's congruent, if you don't feel connected, then pretending to be so is only marginalizing you, and it's actually lowering your frequency. So imagine your emotions are like chords on a guitar or the scales in music. You can start to see that when you're in a great state, that it's almost like a symphony. You're playing across a number of different choruses, in a number of different scales, and it's like it's harmonic, there's flow, and there's texture to it. When you suppress yourself, it's like playing chopsticks. Ding, ding, ding. Like it's in effect not even that. It's like you're just hitting one note.
Well, I think it's awkward. I think there's a feeling of awkwardness because your mind is, and you're in your head, obviously, not in your heart, right? Because your mind is constantly trying to figure out what the people around you want to see or hear or want from you. And so, and then your brain needs to communicate that to your personality of how to be in this moment.
Right. And so you're disconnected from everything.
Very much so.
So yourself first, and then others that you desire to be around. And so that's where all of a sudden it's like, oh, why am I tired all the time? Why do I feel like I'm having to push? Well, it's easy because you're not in flow at all. You're in an altered state that you've elected to try and live in. So it's not a Chuck suit, it's someone else.
Right.
But all the inner parts are there, yet they're not functioning the same. It's almost like you're trying to dial someone's phone number and you're off by a digit. And that can be awkward. When you're off by 6 digits, that's an impossibility. What is authenticity? Actually, what you living in space and being afraid to this is something that happens a lot, especially when we start to look at people that are living in an imposter syndrome or folks that are adopting an ideology or lifestyle, because we have been educated in some environments that if you just copy success, you'll be successful.
And
I
just want to piggyback off that a little bit, because I think it's starting back at the elementary of like, what is authenticity? And I love what our good friend Lauren Lahav says. It's stay true to yourself, right? Stay true to you. And, I heard her say that since 2008. And what did that mean to stay true to me? What did that mean? And like, and we both know nothing has a meaning but the meaning we give it. So I had to figure out the meaning I wanted to truth in myself. What does truth, congruency look like? And I think it's synonymous with the word authenticity, is being authentic. And it's more than just speaking your mind. It's being congruent with what you say. It's being congruent in your behaviors as well as your what you're saying. I tell people all the time is that our behavior is another communication. Our behavior is way louder than our words do, because there's a pattern, and it's not the pattern in what we say, it's the pattern in what we do.
No, that's a great point. I mean, I would also share with our listening audience that authenticity is definitely a matter of identity and state. There are folks that are being authentic, and yet they're living in a state where they're trying to identify to a part of themselves that may not even exist yet. So as an example, there's this ideology. There's actually a very interesting NLP technique called New Orleans flexibility drill. And for anyone who's ever done it, it's literally the supposition is that you're going to adopt someone else's status, stature, mindset, ideology, presence, and persona. And you to go and be in a situation, and then you have that persona. And I go, here's the only challenge with that. If you don't truly believe that that's who you are, then you're acting. And you can try to convince yourself that it is a powerful tool. So what's it great for? Well, it's great for in a moment, momentarily giving you the access to an identity to get you through a situation. I would not recommend living your entire life that way.
No, but I also think it gives, because I love using that as a tool with the kids I work with. It gives you also certainty that when you adopt a new ideology and you're able to move forward and get the results you want, it creates your own certainty. So you realize like, hey, that's what was missing, and I already have it. Because when you do that skill, you're bringing in, you're stacking, like, where have you seen the confidence? Like when you see that person, where do you feel confident? How is that person standing when they're confident? Well, how do you stand when you're confident? Could you stand like them? And just by making those little tweaks, you realize it's something that you have inside of you, but you never knew how to use it in a proper way to get the results you want. So I hear what you're saying, and I do agree that you can't keep faking it throughout life. It's something that you need to try on, see that you have it within you, get the results you want, and stack those results to realize like, hey, I don't need to
Yes,
borrow it anymore. I already got it inside of me.
exactly. It's using the tool for what it is, which is an identification tool of the gifts that you have not acknowledged in you, but you see in others.
Correct.
And this is where that's why I say the fake it till you make it scenario is when you completely adopt someone else's ideology
And it's
and
not
you
you.
no, and you forego yourself. You're like going, I'm over there sitting in the corner with a dunce cap on,
Yeah. Who's that?
and yeah, and this other folk is like running the show. And to your point, no, and I'm so with you, Veenu, and I love that you use that as a tool. It's something that when we get to identify, and this is that part of the authenticity. So to your point, when we're linking it to the emotions and feelings that we actually feel inside ourselves at times, but we haven't cultivated that strength yet. We haven't cultivated that muscle. It's like, ooh, this is cool because now I can actually shore it up. Where the transition becomes, to your point, is when we get to condition it, when we get to live in it, utilize it, and then own it. And that's really what authenticity is owning you. Owning you. Where it gets creative and fun is that you're not done growing yet. None of us are. So when we start to find out that it's like, oh, wait, we can dare to dream, we can fantasize, we can grow beyond the scope of this. And the answer is, oh, heck yeah, 100%. So what does it mean when you start to question your authenticity?
I think that it happens at such a young age. I think that like, it's interesting. I remember when I first heard that eighth grade is the toughest year of a child's life. And I was like, amen. Like it was like eighth grade literally was the toughest year of my life. But why? So I go into the why, right? Because you and I both have been trained by some of the same mentors, and we always get to the cause versus the effect.
Absolutely.
So if we went to the cause, it's such an identity shift. It's the last year of elementary per se, but middle school, right? Last year, you feel like you're the big man on campus now, and you're getting ready to go be the small fish in the sea again. And it's a different culture from middle school, elementary to high school.
Oh,
Huge difference. And so you're trying to figure out, who am I? I know who I am in this moment now, but who am I going to be able to carry this person over and still be that person? It's that loss of identity in that moment. And you're trying to try on, again, different hats of like, who do I need to be? What
yeah,
am I lacking? And when you can't see your own blind spots and all you get from your parents and your friends is like, you're doing it wrong, that also stacks. And you also did get your sense of identity. And so, yes, authenticity comes to identity. And I think we need to start with figuring out who you are first, what that feels like. And it's not just who you are. You and I talked about it in the beginning of this tonight's call, was that frequency, right? Does it feel awkward? Does it feel natural? Does this feel like you have to do it? Or does this feel like it's just a part of you doing it? It's a through you.
absolutely. Yep. Well, and so I wonder at times where when we start to look at the shift in ecology and the shift in the energy of the space that we're in. Because let's think about that transition time as far as the young adulthood is concerned in eighth grade. They get into high school, they're starting to drive, they're starting to date. It's like girls and guys become way more important. Social status, groups, clubs, activities, sports. It's like it goes from here to here. It's like just seeing this flower blossom. It goes from being a bud, and you're like going, oh, it's open now. And like, okay, so what does that mean? Well, it requires some things. It requires more input, nutrition, interface, connection, time. And you bring up a beautiful point, Veenu, and that is at that eighth grade level, your life is being widely controlled and influenced by your family. Because you're reliant on them for transportation, for connection, for monetary purposes, for food, shelter, literally everything.
Like
Yep.
literally permission. What am
Yep.
I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do?
Exactly. And then you get into high school and the lanyards start to become a little bit more loose. And we call it responsibility. And it's like going, oh, you've assumed more responsibility, so you deserve more. I'm like going, yeah, I'm studying calculus as a sophomore. My brain's fried. It's like, thank you. Thanks, mom and dad. And people go, okay, so what does that have to do with this? Well, your true authentic self starts to take on an identity. You're starting to develop even a higher level of personality and social skills. Because now there's these things called dances. Now there's these things like football games and socials where you're interfacing with other students. And there's a lot more time management required and self-state management that's required. Because I look back to between 8th grade to high school and I go, 8th grade, you're just in the mode. Like you own the school, you own everything that's going on. You get to be a freshman, you're like going, wait, what do you mean I can't go in the quad? Wait, what do you mean I have to wear button-down shirts and you can't wear jeans? We couldn't wear jeans unless it was Friday. And so people are like going, wait, what? Okay. Now, why is that important? I go, higher level of rules, higher level of expectations, hierarchy. And I go, oh. And so what do you have a desire to do if you're motivated? To expand, to grow. And it's like, okay, so how assured of yourself are you when you're, a snot-nosed freshman and you're looking up at seniors, at least my height, when I was like looking at these guys going, man, we're all the same freaking height when we're freshmen. And then what happened? Sophomore,
Right.
junior year, I'm like going, dude, really? Like they're 6'6" and I'm like still 5'7", trying to stretch out to 5'8". So why do I go there? Because my identity wasn't that I was a small guy with big friends. It was like, hey, I'm hanging out with my buddies. And so, right? So part of this is the languaging that we learn and the environment. It's one of the reasons why, and I'm going to get a little controversial for a moment, but that's why people join organizations or gangs. And they go, oh, what's the Boy Scouts of America? And I go, it's a gang.
It's belonging.
Yeah, it's a group of people that are striving to connect. In fact, this week I'm actually going to be on the speaker spotlight, and I'm going to be talking about connection, because it's the one thing that binds all humans together. It's the one thing that moves us to get outside of our comfort zone. And sometimes, and I'm going to let you go there because I knew when we started talking about this, it's going to. I'll just remind ourselves that one of the best ways to remain in authenticity is to actually end up being kind to ourselves. And yes, Veenu.
So I say, when you were talking about connection, it's our connection gives us a sense of purpose.
Yes.
When we belong somewhere, it gives us a sense of purpose that we are needed. We're worth that. And it's one of the things that I thrive on teaching my clients at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and so on, is how to build in their worth, and then teaching parents how they have such a role in making their kids' worth be bigger than it is. Because you know what? Sometimes people are like, why am I even here? For what reason? I'm not connected at school. I have one friend. My parents are constantly yelling at me. There's no connection. So that connection is gone. Their purpose is gone. And they just don't know how to be. Yeah. How am I supposed to be if I'm constantly, and I know this because I lived this. Like I lived with a very strict mother who constantly was yelling and whatnot. And it's funny because my kids are like, oh, well, you were like that. Well, because you know what? I had to break the cycle too. Like I acknowledge that, definitely acknowledge that. And breaking that cycle and recognizing, different pattern languages and different ways to get my kids to respond and see that I'm here for their better good, not to make their life miserable.
Right.
But I was bullied at school. I was yelled at home. No wonder I lived a life feeling suicidal for so long, because I thought that was the answer. That was the exit plan to what I thought, was zero connection, except for to my one best friend. Like I literally thought like 2 people would care if I died. That was my best friend and my mom. Like that was my mindset for so long in my life. And then I had kids, and then that gave me a different purpose. And all of a sudden you have that unconditional connection, right? Like you have that unconditional love from them. And so it gave me more purpose. It gave me like, okay, now I'm a mom. But you know what, Chuck? For the longest time, that's all I lived in. That's all I
Yeah.
had was that identity.
That one. So yes, going back to what we were just discussing, it's like, so the environment and the shift in that environment, an environment could be people, it can be a space, a place, a community. And you said something that's brilliant, and it really is important to acknowledge, and that is the first two letters in belong are B. And so you can't belong to a community, a space, a connection, if you are so disassociated from self that you can't be. All it does is make you long for the things that you are looking for.
You want to be.
Yeah, you want, because that's what you're longing to do, is to be. And so what do we say, Veenu? You're doing your best, never being your best. We know a lot of people who are busy and that's what you were doing. You were doing your best as a mom and as a parent and as someone who had this identity. And yet, if we feel like we're missing something, and I go, then we're not being our best. We're striving for that, but there's an emotional state that's missing. There's something that we're longing for. And they go, oh, well, we all want a lot of things. They go, longing and wanting are two different things. I've never heard my children go, I long to have that toy that I saw on TV. I've heard them, oh, I want it.
I mean, just to your point also, like going back to authenticity, when you don't know where you belong and you don't know who you need to be to belong, you don't know who you are and you don't know how to be true to yourself. You don't know what authenticity means. You know, you're living in the rat race of trying to figure it out.
Oh, definitely.
The chameleon syndrome, like, that chameleon syndrome that many people that we've known have it. And it's so interesting because I see this and it like really irks me how I can look at people and I'm like, how do people not see through it? How do people not see through this? And these people are making lots of money and they're creating all these retreats and these like things. And I'm like, I'm mind blown. I am mind blown that the people that I do know that are authentic, that are creating things, are not getting as much as the chameleon. And I'm like, what am I missing?
Well, and this is where this is going to be troubling, and it's going to be very true. And that is, the norm is that there are so many people who are willing to live in a life of mediocrity.
Yes.
With the chance of hopium. So, we've seen that movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. These are folks that are living with a chance of hopium, hoping that there could be a possibility that they could have this eternal happiness, this growth, this connection, this place where they're going to belong. And I go, you and I've seen this happen with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people over the year. They'll go to an event and they go, I'm here for this. I am here to experience and learn these skills. And I go, great. Did you learn them? They're like, no, I got so much more. I go, oh, let me guess. You were around a bunch of people who thought like you. And so this is where this kind of, like we've talked about this, fake it till you make it, face it as you make it, faith it as you make it, and then believe till you achieve. Well, this is the first step for some folks. They walked into a space going, okay, I paid my money. I'm in. I'm going to go ahead and be this. Then they start to face some things and they start to realize, oh my gosh, I came to have these skills learned and mastered in a 4-day event, by the way. So you're going to get mastery in 4 days. And they end up connecting to people.
That's what it is. It's the connection. Because when you ask people at several different organizations that I've been at, what did you get out of it? I got a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. What specifically are you going to use? I'm going to use all of it. What specifically? So much. I got pages of notes. So much. What's the first thing you're going to do? Go back and read my notes. It's a constant, because you do feel filled up. You really do feel filled up. And sometimes people just need that.
And why? Why do you feel filled up? This goes back to the base level of what we're discussing tonight. energy and frequency.
Yeah.
You are swimming in a sea of people, and in these very carefully choreographed environments, you are being elevated and brought to a crescendo and kept there. So there's spaced repetition, there's connection. So there's a lot of behavioral patterns that go into very successful seminars and engagements. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's be very clear. The difference is when you go forward home and now you do not have that same level of frequency that, hey, the music comes on, the lights come on, people are moving, everyone's jumping, say yes, all right, let's celebrate, let's have a great time. That's awesome. And here's the truth. You can feel that way every single day because those emotions and feelings are within you. You experience them, to your point earlier, Veenu. I don't have to be someone else in order to have that experience, yet I do need to be able to recreate the rituals, right, and habits that will allow me to build that muscle. So if it's that identity, that concept, that level of authenticity, that level of presence and state.
And you can make it. You can make this you when it starts to work. And I like what one of our listeners said. It is overwhelming. It is definitely overwhelming when you go into these spaces, and because it makes sense.
Yes.
Not rocket science. And you think like, oh my gosh, I know this. And, I'm an action taker. So when I go to something or I learn something, I'm like, okay, I need to take action on it, because why? I need to try it on. I need to say, is this the step that's going to take me to the next step in my life? And if it doesn't, okay, great. Then what's next?
Yes.
And if it does, okay, great. I want to keep this. I want to keep doing that, because you know what? When I first went to my first event in 2007, how did I make the change? I embodied what I was doing there. I got up, I made my move. I said positive things about myself. I looked in the mirror. I was able to shift the way I was seeing life. And I continued that, and I created a pattern where it felt better. It felt better to feel better, to be better, than it was to, oh, poor me, I'm a victim. My life is always going to be this way. Woe is me. I had to shift it. And so again, me personally, I was able to pinpoint things that I needed to change in my life.
Sure.
But I created that is a part of my identity of who I am still today. And I think that's the difference in what you're saying, is that I'm not faking it. I tried things on. It felt good. It made change. It's now a part of me.
Well, there's a difference between adopting someone else's ideologies and then owning your own. Because what you're saying is you used a filter, which was, does this work for me? Am I growing? Am I expanding? Yes. The one thing that you did, Veenu, is that you committed. When I say fake it, it's because people who aren't living in commitment, they're dabbling. And they're trying on a bunch of different stuff, and they don't even give it time or energy to actually germinate and cultivate. So it's kind of like someone going, you know what? I tried that whole running thing and I wasn't able to run a marathon. Like, how long have you been training? 1 day. Okay. So I could have the most accomplished marathoner in the world tell me exactly how to do it, how to train, how to do everything. If I'm not willing to commit to the training, I'm not going to get the results. If you're not willing to commit to, as you said, doing it, the doings, then you're never going to go anywhere.
Right.
And yet this is that hopium state that I was talking about, because people are hoping, man, I paid my money. Why am I not getting a change? I'm like going, really, dude? Because you have a whole library of hopium. There's shelf help sitting right there. You've gone to all these different seminars, yet how many people do we know? And I've been guilty of this. Oh, as soon as I get home, I'm going to get on this. I'm going to make this happen. And I go, well, there were certain action items I took. Absolutely. Others, out of the 1,500 that I had written down in my notebook, and I was like, well, this goes back to another conversation we had several weeks ago, Veenu, and that was, how do we prioritize?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And, like our listener also, like I also had 𝐞𝐦𝐿 syndrome. I also had hopium, that was until I realized the recipe of authenticity. once I was able to realize the authenticity, the person I am, the chameleon went away.
Yes.
The hopium, I don't hope. I
Mm,
just do. I know what I want and I create it. I know what I want and I create it. I know my end results of what I want and I create it. Like that is what I do in my life.
yep.
And so there's no
Absolutely.
more hopium.
No, and hopium is left for those that are literally, they're more than on the fence. They're sitting in the house looking out the window and hoping that it's going to be a sunny day. Then it's a sunny day. And then they hope that it's going to, be the perfect temperature. And then they find that it's a sunny day, it's the perfect temperature. And then they hope that someone's going to call them to go out and it's like, oh, for the love of Pete, you're blessed with all these amazing things around you. And yet we long to connect. And we're not connecting with self. We're not elevating past this syndrome, and we call it chameleon syndrome. I will say this: I lived that for the better part of my through my 30s, early 30s. And people go, "What?" I said, because I had rules growing up as a kid, and that was I wasn't fully Japanese, so I didn't belong in Japan. I wasn't fully Irish, so because again, how Irish do I look? Not very, and so I didn't belong anywhere. At least that's what I felt. Yet I had a loving family, brother, sister, mom, dad, community. And the point that I'm trying to make is I never felt comfortable with me.
Mm.
And you can't outrun you. So you can think that when you achieve this level of success that you're going to be successful. And I go, no, because your standard operating procedure is you hit a benchmark and then what do? You set a new one.
Yeah.
Because that's your definition of success. A 𝐞𝐽, right? I'm going to constant never ending improvement. It's like, awesome. And when do you celebrate?
Thank you. And I think that's what people miss. They don't even realize when they're being themselves because they're forgetting to celebrate the small things. Like I think we talked about this last week, what Justin Clinton III, our friend does, like that's his whole thing is celebrate life, celebrate it all. That's what the whole 𝐸 Coding Institute is that he has, that where we teach people to coach and speak. And, as the instructor there, I'm constantly asking people when we're taking wins, like, how did you celebrate? How did you celebrate? It's anchoring that celebration because you know what? That's the shift. And it goes back to even when we're talking about the New Orleans flexibility drill. It's when you take on a new emotion of that person and you do something with it and you get the results and you celebrate it and you celebrate it, that becomes you, not as that person.
Correct.
But as you.
Yes. And there's something to be said about living in the affirmative. And that's one of the things about that drill that I chose to help add in. And that was, what are the positive emotions? What are the empowering states? What are those feelings that you can link to when you believe you are this person? Not that person, this person, this person. And I love what you just said, my friend, and that it makes it so much more endearing and powerful because these drills, as we remember, are exactly that. They're drills and tools. How they're utilized and the context that they're utilized. A hammer is a great tool. Not when you're trying to screw in something. And a screwdriver is a great tool, but not when I need to hammer in a spike. And so it's like at some point in time, we need to understand the usage and also the simplicity, because at the root of all this is you. Is you. So when we're feeling authentic, and I don't know that there's just one way that you feel when you're authentic, because it's actually a state of being. It's like it's everything. As you and I have discussed so many times, it's never about one thing. And how often do we get asked, so what's the one thing? If I'm just that, and it's like, oh boy. Okay.
There's not. But I would say when I do have to choose, I would always say quality questions. It always starts with a question.
Definitely.
Everything starts with a question. But to your point, I think that, and by the way, I do the same thing. I get people to anchor in the emotions that they're feeling.
Yep.
that person because I
Stack.
don't want them to be that person. You know, I have when I did it, I pink was my person, and so I do joke around. I'm like, every once in a while, you need your pink in your life, and it's just a reminder of the emotions that I felt in that moment,
Mhm.
stepping into that to do what I needed to do with the confidence I needed. So I do the same thing as you, Chuck. I get that person to really hone in on those emotions and what it feels like and where it feels like in their body.
Yes.
You know, so I just wanted to make that point because I think that is so that's part of authenticity. It's not feeling it because someone else felt it. It's feeling it because you feel it, where you feel it, and how you feel it. It's a
Correct.
different meaning, it's a different emotion, it's a different filter.
Well, it's your filter, and I love the way I believe that the preface that goes around a New Orleans flexibility drill is that what are the characteristics? You know,
Yes.
it's like, and so what's great about that is so now you're not just even calling out the emotion, but that characteristic has a certain emotional frequency for you,
Mhm.
and that's where the empowerment comes from, right? It's like so when we get to help someone stack these and really engage with it. And that's something that's so imperative. I've seen folks that will try it on, and so they will make their best attempts. But you can see how energetically they're so distanced from what they're experiencing. And then you see someone who's like in it, like living it, breathing it. You'll even hear slight inflections and changes in the tonality and timbre of their voice. You'll see a difference almost in their like, and not to get woo woo, but like their auric field, like the energy that's around them. They almost appear bigger than they are. You go, whoa, okay, they showed up.
You know, I think also I want to bring just for our listeners another when do you know someone's being authentic? They make you feel different. There's a feeling that
Hmm.
when I'm around authentic people, I feel trust, I feel safety. And when I'm not around authentic people, that the people that I that are chameleons, I can hear what they say. They say some really good things, by the way. Like I've seen
Oh,
some
they're
people.
gifted.
I
Yep.
learn I can learn from some things they say, and yet I can walk away and say, "That's not my people."
Hmm. You know, it goes back to that connection, right? When
Mhm.
their frequency, when someone's authentic and you're authentic, it's like an unspoken language. It
Right.
really is. You're like, "Oh, that's just a good person."
It's like a gut feeling.
It is.
It
Well,
is.
it is. It's like here. It's below your chin and above your navel. Like it's like your heart. That like you said, your gut. You just feel it. You know it. You know it. It's not like oh yeah, they seem like a nice person. Oh, I like what they said. That's to what you were saying before. It's like I can appreciate someone who's like-minded.
Mhm.
What I find in authenticity is that we're like-hearted.
Yes. You know, and I've done it. Like I've done retreats with people, and I remember going on a retreat, me and my husband, and the minute we got there, we're like, "This doesn't feel like us."
Right.
And we stayed. We stayed for the few days. We enjoyed it. We, you know, parts of it. We took some notes. We got some learning out of it, and we left knowing that we would never go back. Like that, the community that was created there was not some great people in there, but
Right.
not our community. And that's what made me think about it. It's that you know, and
Well,
I know people are out there to make money, and so they want to be like, oh, I'm a healer, I'm this, and I can do this, I could do that, and it's something that it's just faking it to make it.
oh, it's probably one of the most incongruent, inauthentic states someone can be in,
Hmm.
and they're just selling. Like they're selling 24/7. It's funny because you and I just and our husband and wife were just in Dubai together with a bunch of our friends, our family members at YBL, and I go, "What an unbelievably authentic group of people." You
Yes.
know, and yet it's so believable because you were there, you experience it, and people go, "This is for real." Like there's
Mhm.
this many nice people, loving people, connected people. They don't want anything from me other than to hang out with me, get to know me, understand me, support me, love on. It's like, uh-huh, yep,
And that's why I like Your Best Life now. Like, I love YBL because of the quality of people there, entrepreneurs, they make money, and they're not trying to sell you. They're
yep,
not pulling you to a corner going, "Oh, guess what my new product is?" Matter of fact, I had to seek out like, "Oh, tell me more, like, I want that," you know? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, we will on a break." They're not eager to sell you. They're
No.
eager to be with you.
Yes.
They really genuinely wanna know you.
And that's another indicator. When the currency that someone's seeking is you.
Yeah,
It's you. That's the authenticity. That's where there is no chameleon. You can be whoever you need to be, and they're going to appreciate you for it without judgment. And that is such a, oh, I mean, judgment gets a bad rap. So let me be very clear on that. Let me be very clear. Measuring the difference between intuition and then there's a difference in judgment. Intuition's when you're listening to your gut. Judgment's when you're making a decision up here based on a certain set of circumstances. You're not like going, something doesn't feel right. You're like going, oh no, they're being bad. They're being good. They go, okay. They go, but what's the one about measurement? And I said, I don't judge if it's hot or cold outside. I go, it's 75 degrees.
right.
Okay. Well, what does that mean? Well, is it 75 and overcast? Is it 75 sunny? Is it 75 with a breeze? Is it 75 with some wind? What, wind, rain, what have you? I go, okay. So I'm not judging. I'm saying I can have an experience, but I can also take the measurement. My height is my height. My weight is my weight. My heartbeat's my heartbeat. My blood sugar is what it is. The temperature outside, the barometric pressure, I said, those are all measurements. And I go, you know what? I'm blessed. That's a feeling. That's an understanding and a commitment and connection to myself. I go, I had a crappy day. Okay, why? What happened? Was it about the day? Was it about the situation? Or was it how you showed up in coping or how you felt in that moment? None of it's right or wrong, yet it all stems in how authentic are we connecting to self? Because I don't know about you all, but I have had times in my life where I've made a determination about someone else when I was probably in the worst state I could have possibly been in. Is that going to be a great compliment to them and go, they're the nicest person I know? You know, like going, no, you're like going, nah, they're kind of a weenie. And I was like, oh, Chuck, were you in a good state? And you're like going, what do you think? Oh, okay. Well, if you go take a walk for a minute, might you feel a different way when you come back? Maybe. Because we get to change our state.
When I started to really hone into authenticity and my measurement tool, because we have different measurement tools, is being myself unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
Not feeling the need of, okay, what do they think of that? Did I say it right? Was my tonality right?
Right.
Like, just being me and coming from my heart, it's a win-win. And that is how I know I'm authentic. It's like, yep, I did that. It's ownership, and appreciation. And you said something, it's connection with self. It's not seeking just to connect with everyone else. It's, was I connected with myself? And it wasn't a performance. That is when it's authenticity. It's authentic. It's you. It's what Lauren says, staying true to you.
100%. And regardless of the situation. Regardless of the situation. Right. If you're in church, if you're at a funeral, a wedding, if you're at a party, if you're at an event, if you're in the hot seat, whatever the case might be, I go, are you being you?
Yep.
Because I will see so many people, and I love people watching. You and I are wired very similarly. It's like, because in fact, I remember even you and I sitting next to each other at events, and you'd be like, and I'm, back at you. And why was that? We were both feeling the same thing, and it's like going, or I've been in places where they catch you across the road, like, who are like, oh yeah, you too, you felt that too. Mm-hmm. And why do I go there? We all have different levels of intuition. We all have different levels of energetic sensitivity. One of the things that I have found, and this is something that really took some time for me after having had a son and then two girls. My daughters, and my son has it too, but they have different levels of energetic frequency of what their happiness zones are, what their humor zones are, also what their sensitivity zones are. And this is so important to understand as a parent, because don't you want your kids to live an authentic life? And yet in today's environment of TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all this social media, there are so many folks, in fact, it's gone beyond the fray, where they're paying tens of thousands of dollars a month for likes.
Right.
Fake connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it. Fake connection. Because I'm not going, do these people know you? Nope.
Nope.
Oh, but you bought this many influencers, and so now their following becomes your following. And I'm like,
but it's not. When you're doing something like we do the show to connect with people, to allow people, if you know better, you could do better.
yes.
You know, that's always been something I've learned, and it's my motto. And this is our way of helping people to know better, and they can do what they want with it. You know, you have your other TV show, Your Best Life, and I have mine, Redefine Parenting. And it's literally about giving people another opportunity to learn something different so they can do something different in their life. And we're here, and we speak our truth, and we talk about what's going on in our life and why it shows up and how it shows up, you know, to support people where they're at. And with that being said, you know, please reach out to me at Veenu Inspires or with Chuck. I don't know what your handle is, Chuck. What is your handle?
Oh, you could reach out just at yblnow.com, at Chuck at yblnow.com. It's interesting because we both have a mentor and a friend, Dean Innes, and he goes, you know, all this stuff is really simple, but it's not always easy.
I love that.
And his other second favorite saying is, you got to eat the frog first. It was like, okay, what if I'm not a fan of frogs?
Eat it anyway.
That's what he's saying.
Chicken.
That's it. Frog's legs. And his deal is, and it's really simple. It's because he understands that most people will do what they're comfortable doing and forego what they need to do.
Yeah.
So let's invert that and do the hard stuff first. Because then once you're through that, man, life is so enriching and so rewarding. And to Veenu's point, if you're not really good at celebrating, when would now be a great time to start learning?
You know, and this came in Dubai, actually, a lesson for me that I'll share with our listeners is that I had a meeting with one of our speakers, and you don't get more authentic than that. Like, this is what it is, you know, and people are like, how did it go? How did it go? And I said, for the first time in my life, I got what I needed, not what I wanted. What I wanted was like, oh my gosh, this company's great. Like, you don't have to do much more. Do this little tweak. Your company will do this. It's not what I got. It's not what I got. You know, I got a whole new plan of what I need to execute on. And that was it. Is that how much of us are really getting what we need? Or are we just going for what we want?
It's interesting because Irene said, I love simple, easy, and fast, but I make it complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And
we always do.
Yes, Irene. And the reason why we do that collectively is very simple. We believe that if it was easy, everyone would do it. And yet most people are too afraid to actually be their true authentic selves.
Right.
And so they complicate it because now we have an excuse. So let's just turn your focus and your attention to making it easy. Being you is actually the simplest and easiest thing and state you can possibly own, because you're not broken. You never have been. You're an amazing miracle of life right now, and you get to celebrate you. So if you could write down 10 things about yourself that you love and adore and appreciate, what would those be? Just 10. I know there's a million. but just pick the top 10 and remind yourself that this is who you are. This is not just part of you, but it's all slivers of you that, when added together, create this amazing symphony. It's not about just one thing. Ever.
Yeah.
Any of us.
Never it is. Never ever. Thank you all for joining us again, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Live Now with Veenu Keller and Chuck Hogan. Follow us on Instagram at Veenu Inspires and at Chuck Hogan Now. For more about Veenu, please visit VeenuInspires.com. And for Chuck, please check out YBLNow.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.